The Crime Cafe, your podcasting source of great crime, suspense, and thriller writing. I'm your host, Debbi Mack. Before I bring on my guest, I'll just remind you that The Crime Cafe has 2 ebooks for sale, the 9-book box set and the short story anthology. You can find the buy links for both on my website, debbimack.com, under the Crime Cafe link. You can also get a free copy of either book if you become a Patreon supporter. You'll get that and much more if you support the podcast on Patreon, along with our eternal gratitude for doing so. But first, let me put in a good word for Blueberry Podcasting. I'm a Blueberry affiliate, but that's not the only reason I'm telling you this. I've been using Blueberry Podcasting as my hosting service for my podcast for years, and it's one of the best decisions I ever made. They give great customer service. You're in complete control of your own podcast. You can run it from your own website. And it just takes a lot of the work out of podcasting for me. I find for that reason that it's a company that I can get behind 100% and say, you should try this. Try Blueberry. It doesn't require a long-term contract, and it's just a great company, period. And it also has free technical support by email, video, and phone. So you can get a human being there. Isn't that nice? Hi, everyone. My guest today is the author of 2 book series. One is the Screen Siren Noir series, featuring British film stars that get caught up in noir tales of blackmail, obsession, scandal, and death. Ooh. His latest release, Vivian Fontaine, is the 4th in that series, and he's working on a 5th. He also writes a horror series under the moniker Ghostly Shadows Anthology. I'd be interested in hearing more about that, too. There are 6 volumes in that series. Originally from Wales, he now lives with his wife and daughter in London. It's my pleasure to introduce my guest, F.R. Jameson. Hi, F.R., how are you doing today?
Hello, Debbie. How are you? I'm fine, thanks.
Oh, wonderful. And what a wonderful backdrop you've got there. Just delightful. Regal Theater. Ooh, it's just...
I think it looks more American than it does British, but I might be wrong.
Well, that's very interesting. Yeah, it looks very Broadway-ish or something like that. Yeah, grand. So it is nice to finally see you after getting your newsletters where you talk about movies a lot. I love that.
Yes.
I really do enjoy your newsletters more than most authors because of that, I think. You talk about television shows, you talk about movies, you talk about something other than your books, but you do talk about your books too.
I do talk about my books. I feel like, you should do, but then I send it out every fortnight, and to send it out every fortnight only talking about that, I would be bored because you know what it's like when you're writing a book. It's great when it's finished, but the actual incremental stages of it, it's not that fascinating.
Yes.
Another 2 weeks, I've done another 60 pages. They seem quite good.
Yes. I can't wait for you to see them. Yeah, I've been sitting here at my desk, and it is so exciting writing this 60 pages.
And then you want things like reflecting that kind of existential dread when you're about 2/3 through, and you're thinking, is any of this good? Is this just terrible? I don't know anymore.
I have had those thoughts, believe me.
I think all authors have those thoughts where you get to the point. You do get to a point where you think you have other ideas in your head, and you just think, I'll just write one of those. Because that, compared to this, is brilliant. So you get experience enough to know. You get 2/3 into that, you'll be thinking, I want to do something else now, and you'll never ever finish anything.
Yeah, you really have to kind of hone in on those things that really interest you and really excite you, I think, and go with those, and set aside other things for other times, so to speak. What inspired you to write about British film stars?
Well, I was thinking, I'm sort of massive noir fan. I sort of read the earlier Megan Abbott novels, which is very much in that milieu in Los Angeles. and also read James Elroy, and in my past, you've got Chandler and James Cain and Dashiell Hammett and Jim Thompson, and I'd love to do a book like that, but not being American and not knowing the locales, I felt it would be starting out with imposter syndrome, and I didn't want to be in the situation where I'm sweating over Hollywood's geography. And would you really go to that club? Would you really turn left at that place, or would you keep going? And it would just, unless you just made it all up, which feels wrong. So I wanted it sort of grounded in a place. And then it occurred to me that Britain does have a film industry, which is a much smaller affair, but it is there. And you did have things like big studios in the 1950s. You had Rank, you had Ealing, you did Hammer. You had these places in the 1950s and 60s, and you could set it around there. But they become by necessity smaller and more parochial tales because it's not the massive star system, big glamour machine that Hollywood is. There is a smallness to it, but that works, I think, in that kind of in the kind of genre's favour. Because one of my sort of favourite authors sort of writing this stuff is Jim Thompson, who can write these books in kind of like set in like nowhere little towns where characters wind up in things start happening, or cities that kind of just exist in kind of dreams almost. They don't seem to have any geographic basis to them, but they are small. They're small places, and so I was sort of leaning into the smallness of them as opposed to the big glamour of Hollywood, which would be fake if I tried to write it.
Well, I think focusing on the small stuff makes it far more interesting. I've always found, it's interesting how many of these movies are set in LA or New York, but some of the most interesting stories take place outside of those places. And
yes.
This is, again, for something like British cinema, which itself is smaller compared to, say, Hollywood. I mean, that in itself interests me. But you guys had Alfred Hitchcock first, so
but he'd gone by about 1940, and we did. It was much more done on a shoestring operation from the 50s and 60s. And if I have in my head one set in the 70s, and by that point, it's terrible sex comedies is the main thrust of the British film industry. It's a whole other business. It's not the new Hollywood. It's kind of just these awful films that are the main focus of it. Awful films, ridiculously good casts because that's the only work they could get.
Wow. Well, I see what you're talking about there. I think I know the films you're talking about too.
Yeah.
So are the main characters based on actual actresses?
I've read a lot of biographies of directors and actors and actresses. So I haven't specifically taken an actress and tried to read her life story in a fictional form, but I have, through a lot of reading, as occasionally watching documentaries of them, little nuggets are pulled out and kept in mind of things that really happen to people that I can then use to happen to my fictional protagonists.
Mm-hmm. So there was a good deal of research in terms of reading that went into preparing.
There's a good deal of kind of very pleasurable research. I greatly enjoy reading that stuff. I don't find it onerous. And there's a lot of watching old films, and which again I don't find it's all research I enjoy.
Exactly, especially watching those old films.
Yes.
Very much. What are your plans for the series? Do you have a certain number of books you'd like to write, or?
Well, it's also right. I mean, as well as the sort of Ghostly Shadows series you very kindly mentioned, I've got another series which is the Ludo Carstairs Supernatural Thrillers, which kind of straddles both the thrillers and the horror, but I think the supernatural elements takes them for a lot of thriller fans far more into the horror arena. Just because a lot of thriller fans are very much focused on real world stuff and see the supernatural thing elsewhere, which is fine. So that at the moment is my main focus. But yeah, I certainly want to keep writing the noir novels as I get a great deal of pleasure from them. So I've got another one already typed up on my computer, so I now have to sort of at some point sort of rewrite it and edit it. I've got ideas for others. I have starts for others. So it's just when I can get the focus to sort of get the attention down. And I don't know, maybe I'm just finishing because I start off writing a book in longhand in notepads, and I've sort of nearly sort of finished writing one New York Castile supernatural thriller for next year. I'm thinking for like January, maybe I will write a short noir novel. But I've had it kind of for myself. It's such a change of pace from thinking of scares or terrifying things, which in the Lucas days, but also you're trying to think of a kind of a Sherlock Holmes-esque relationship and Doctor Who stuff as well. So I'm kind of lots of things fed into that. But it is quite nice to then go to, I'll try and do a Richard Stark novel or a James M. Cain or Jim Thompson stuff and just kind of be inspired to that, or just sort of think of a story from which history I can weave in. I've got an idea for one which kind of leans into Cold War stuff in the early 70s, which would be a slight difference to it, but a change pace. It would very much fit into that world. So the answer to the question is yes, I do want to write more, and I will write more when I carve time, which is always the thing.
Yes, time is always the thing. When do you generally write? What kind of writing schedule do you keep?
And the mornings and evenings. So I write. I don't have it writing everything first draft by hand in notebooks, which is just a good exercise in getting it all down. So I was writing a chapter earlier, and how it is in my notepad now is not very good. It's got the salient things I want to have in that chapter there. So it's done, and then gradually I'll type them all up. I can type up the books quite quickly. Type them all up, make changes and improve things along the way, and then I have my sort of work through version, which is when I go through that document and rewrite and edit and change things around, and it becomes this all kind of a consuming thing of, I have, when you're going through that process, like 20 things in my mind of plot arcs and changes, and you have to go back and sort of foreshadow that. And so it's kind of ticking off a lot of stuff on a list all the time. But I get through it and get it all done, and get to the other side and hopefully have a book I'm really happy with then. And it's kind of one of those moments of, I'm sure you'll appreciate as well, you get to the point where you are happy with it, but you have to kind of draw a line in it, because you could keep going seeking perfection. You could just keep going another couple of drafts at that, then it's 5 years later and you're still working on that one book, and at that point you're thinking, has it got better now? Or was it better 3 years ago?
I tend to be that way more with screenplays than I do with books, actually. Yeah. Screenplays are like a continual work in progress all the time. So
I think the screenplay more than the book is, your screenplay, you're handing it to other people. So you're giving it across, and then there's only lots of notes from the director and the actors, and things change.
Exactly. Even before then, just to reach a reader, it's like, ugh. it's a lot of work. That's all I'll say about that. So I'm interested in the fact that you seem to blend genres and kind of shift among them very easily. What made you decide to be horror? Are you more horror or thriller or crime? How do you like to describe your writing?
I tend to the description of books I write. I write supernatural thrillers and historical thrillers. My screens are noir. I'm not entirely sure how you would do the noir novel right now. Well, yeah, with mobile phone and technology, there are obviously ways you can do that with thriller, but yeah, I mean, I don't want to tackle stuff. I would see myself as someone who writes thrillers, but it just depends on what kind they get blended with. And a lot of it is me writing for my stuff that entertains me, and hopefully other people come along.
Mm-hmm.
It's my supernatural thriller series, Ludicrous David. I sort of wrote one of the Ghostly Shadows book first introduced those characters, and I wrote that one with Paul the Mandrake. And my wife, who was reading it, I was thinking very much as kind of the central relationship is Sherlock Holmes and John Watson. And my wife's reading it to get there to go, it's very Doctor Who, this. It's very Doctor Who and Companion. I go, yeah. That hadn't occurred to me, given how much Doctor Who actually that what doesn't surprise me. So I do now in my head, whenever I'm writing one of these, go there has to be like a Doctor Who scene of just for the central character gets to be brilliant, just that kind of you can try and solve this by being brilliant. So I mean that's in my head all the time. It's sort of something I like. But then where I'm doing one of the noir novels, it's a fine line when you're doing one of those books of you want to do all the tough guy stuff, and you want to sort of lean into your Chandler and so on, but it's very easy to tip into parody. Particularly yes. Chandler. If you try to write Chandler, it's very, very easy to go. Yeah, yes. This is some kind of joke, then, isn't it? It's what you're writing now, rather than saying.
It would be like me trying to take one of my novels and turn my characters into British characters. I don't think it would work.
No.
Although I will say that the main character I write about now likes Marmite.
Okay.
She encountered it while overseas and decided she liked it. She's on the love party. Let's see. What authors have most inspired your work? I think you've named quite a few.
Yeah, I have named. When I was young, Chandler was a massive touchstone. I've read a huge amount of Stephen King over time. And he writes. There's an element of he writes well, he's on form, but he writes pretty too many books, and they're often quite too long. But so still be stung back to his world. So someone's out of that genre. P.G. Wodehouse would be someone who I is very much enjoying that kind of very Woodhouseian thing of avoiding the cliche and going out of their way to avoid the cliche in the most entertaining fashion possible. And I always think that I was having my head. I'm not P.G. Wodehouse. I wouldn't try some of his tricks, but it's always there of trying to go round the cliche rather than simply use it. And sometimes you fail to do that. So it's just the moment and the text being so fraught that going through some roundabout way to avoid the cliche just feels utterly wrong, and it makes more sense to just use it. But I always do have it in my ear. I'm always thinking of that. Is there a fresher way to say this?
That's a great approach. I mean, taking those tropes and then kind of subverting them a little bit. is something that appeals to me very much.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, you've got to think of your you've got to think of your reader. If you're reading stuff about footsteps echoing and doors creaking and all that stuff and all the stuff they've just read 1,000 times before, then I know I'd be saying, well, yeah, this is fine, but is there anything new here? But I think that's kind of to try and aim for stuff that is interesting in its own way, and obviously not every book's going to be for everybody. In fact, most books aren't going to be for everybody. So, but if you can find your readers and they can get on with your style and enjoy it, then all the better.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
What advice would you give to anyone interested in writing for a living?
It's just a case of doing it. I mean, I remember a friend of mine, he'd sort of saved up money and he left his job to become a screenwriter. And then he spent the next 3 years researching how to be a screenwriter. And he read books about narrative and books about script and just went on. And every time he spoke to him, it was, I've done this. I've broken down narrative to this. I've broken down conversations to this. Have you written anything in script? Well, not yet. No. And it's kind of like it's just stopped being this inspiring tale and became this cautionary tale of, you actually do. If you leave your job to sort of follow your dream of writing, you do actually have to write some stuff.
Absolutely, yes.
And it is a case of just getting down and writing. If you get it down, there's that kind of Malcolm Gladwell 10,000 hours thing, and it's probably is something in that. You just need to write a lot and have written a lot, and start understanding narratives and how they work and how they function. So, when you're watching films, you kind of look at what they're doing, look at what comes up again and again. My sort of wife and I are very fond of looking out for a Chekhov's gun or a Chekhov's whatever it's going to be, something that's suddenly been introduced early in the story, and kind of that's going to come back up later.
Right.
The fact you've labeled this thing means we are getting this back then, doesn't it? Like looking for how these things work.
You will never read a book the same way, and you'll never watch a movie the same way after doing this kind of writing.
Yeah.
Kind of what it comes down to. And with screenwriting, it's all very visual too. It's like, in addition to the fact that other people will read it and have ideas about how to do it, you have to constantly think about what is the viewer seeing.
Yeah. Now, how far do you go with kind of the descriptions for that? Because there must be a temptation to go, I will describe everything of this room now.
Well, there might be on the part of some people, not on my part. my tendency is to be too short now, and it's come across in my writing books too. I have to focus to really say, okay, what does this place look like, and even maybe draw it out, so that I can actually write in the details and give the people the impression of being there, which is just not the same with screenplays. It's more like you want to give people a feeling of being there. It's like feeling. It's all about the feeling you give the reader. It's kind of weird. I don't know. It's hard to describe.
Well, I've read your book, Damaged Goods, and that does have the feel of a screenplay to it. Obviously, very quick, snappy scenes, and it feels like someone who knows their way around a film script. You're going very quickly from one thing to the next, and nothing's overstaying its welcome. You're not.
Oh, good. As long as it doesn't feel like you've been shortchanged or anything.
No.
Excellent. Good. And you write all your stuff out like a complete outline of your work before you start writing?
to a certain extent, in that I tend to write in like 3 acts, I think. I sort of have a first bit and the second, the middle bit, and then the end bit. And so I have at the start an idea of what's going to be in the middle bit and an idea of what's going to be in the end bit, but they can change as I go along. And you get more into it and think, actually, it would work better this way rather than, my original plan. But I remember once, before an unfinished Screen Time Noir, I did actually do the thing of to write chapter summaries for every chapter for like 40 chapters. And then by the time I got to write it, I just felt utterly bored with it. Just kind of, yeah, well.
That's why I can't write everything out. It's got to come to, there has to be some surprise in there. I generally plot to some extent, but then I allow myself to deviate from it. Do you kind of do the same? Yeah.
Oh, yes, absolutely. Just, look at it and go, well, you will, when you're writing, you're not, the bit of your brain that gives you the ideas is obviously not switched off when you're writing. So you're not really sort of trying to coin those sentences, but you are thinking, oh, that would be better. And sometimes you'll create a character in the midway through, you think it's going to be a small part, and you write them and think, actually, this would be a good character to have drive this part of the plot. Rather than someone who appears and then, is going to be discarded. This is a good character to keep moving forward with. And
that way you make sure... Yeah, that way you make sure all your characters are actually part of the plot as opposed to just, there for no reason.
Yeah. Yes. But then, there are some characters who are more present than others. There are your kind of main protagonists, but some of those smaller characters you leave for a bit. You just think, no, that's actually a really good one that I have to keep going with, because it will make the book more fun. And that's in the end what you want to do. You want to write as entertaining a book as you possibly can.
Absolutely, for sure.
Yeah.
Is there anything else you'd like to add before we finish up?
Oh no, just to say that, if you want to hear you and I chat about old films at some point, please just watch this space.
Yeah. Getting ready to put together some film discussion and put that up on my film review channel.
Yeah.
So cool. This is excellent. It's going to be fun.
It's going to be fun, yeah.
It'll be great. It'll be awesome. Thank you so much for being here, by the way, and sharing some time and your advice and so forth with us.
No problem at all. Thank you very much for having me.
It was my pleasure. And again, I would like to thank everyone who's listening, and with thanks to my Patreon supporters as well for supporting me. If you enjoyed the podcast, please leave a review. They help. Until next time, when our guest will be Kim Hayes, happy holidays and happy reading. Take care. Be seeing you.